Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 14. It's called Conundrum. So full spoilers for the episode as always. And we commented when we read the description for this one that it sounded kind of similar to an episode we had not too long ago. To give it credit, while it is a memory loss episode, it's a very different type of memory loss. So
it is. I think almost immediately it says, no, this is distinct enough that sure, you can do both of these in the same season and it's not a problem.
Yeah, it was just at face value, because this memory loss is they forget who they are. This is not just that they've lost a day, Red Dwarf style. Although, admittedly, was that Star Trek episode made before that Red Dwarf episode that had the same plot? I don't actually know which one came first. They're about the same time. They're in the ballpark.
It can't be too far either way.
I mean, I'm inclined to think Red Dwarf stole it and did a comedy version.
That is kind of what Red Dwarf did.
Yes, but it's not impossible. So, I mean, people can let us know. It's the Red Dwarf episode where they've buried something on like a moon or something, if I remember right, was like what they got to at the end. But anyway, this episode of Star Trek, they all forget who they are. It's a straight up tabula rasa, if you will, of an episode.
Should I get that one?
It's an episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer where they all lose their memories.
Of course it is.
You may recall such lines as, Randy Giles? Why don't you just call me Horny Giles or Desperate for a Shag Giles?
I remember the episode. I just didn't know the title.
Well, then you can see why I'd compare it to this one then.
I mean, sure.
It is, after all, the same kind of mechanic.
That is definitely one that ripped this off.
Oh, sure. I mean, I doubt this is even the first to pull
it's definitely not.
This particular trick. So here's the thing about this, right? So there's this guy McDuff. Although they always said McDuff, but after the first time I heard it, my head just decided it was McDuffie. I added an extra syllable on the end.
Why? I
don't know why. It just sounded better. But so this guy, right? So at first, when they all lose their memories, right, it was like okay, there's something weird in front of his captain, and there's like a bit of a wave, and it's like, oh shit, we've all forgotten who we are, right? And this guy starts talking as much as the others. At first, I thought, oh, this is genius. You're going to treat like a random background actor like he's suddenly just as important as the rest because they don't know who they are. You're getting the point. You're getting the point of the premise across to us. That is a genius move. And then I got a little less interested when it was like, oh no, he's like first officer, so he's behind it. So whatever.
Well, I will give. He was EXO, right? So I will give him the slightest bit of credit still in that. It would not be weird for this show to just introduce someone of a semi-significant rank.
Well, no, because he demoted Riker. Because I noticed that Riker was second officer when they finally found their titles.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, Riker was demoted.
I think it was before that point, or right around that point. It was still like plausible. But it was like, yeah, sure, Trek could get away with just throwing in a random new character at rank.
Oh, which is what I took him as, and I thought it was kind of genius that you're using this premise to say, well, if they all lose their memories, then this guy's just as important as anyone else on the bridge, even though he isn't to us. In theory, he's just as important because they're all wiped clean. So I was a little disappointed that's not what was going on. Not that there was anything wrong with what actually was going on, but I was a little disappointed that it wasn't my background character became important.
Good beats on that line, like what they did with Worf.
Yes. There's obviously this episode explores kind of the characters if they're stripped away of like all of their experiences, but keep their core characterization. So you get like Worf instantly thinks that they're in a battle situation. He keeps sort of pushing that angle. Picard is still very diplomatic. Like Riker's very much a ladies' man. Like all these things persist, and it's kind of it shows you like there's almost a conflict between Worf and Picard in this episode until Worf realizes that Picard is indeed the captain, and then he changes his tune.
I actually like the way they handled it before it got to that moment where Worf's like, well, maybe I'm the captain. I've got decorations as well, so maybe we don't know. And a little bit later, he's just sat in the captain's chair. It's not followed up on immediately. There's no like, oh, well, I guess you are. He's just sat in the chair and is giving orders. And I like the way it just trusts the audience to know that, no, they've had this discussion at some point, or, maybe not, he's just taking control. Either way, it's like, no, he's clearly in charge now.
Yeah, he's kind of just taking natural leadership, which tends to happen in situations. Unless someone challenges him, a type of personality like his will just kind of take over. And like you say, he's sitting in that chair and he's kind of like, people are reporting things to him and he's giving like follow up to them. Maybe it's not always a good answer necessarily, but he's giving follow up. He's sort of like responding as if he is in charge. And Picard doesn't necessarily challenge him, but there's a great moment in the first half of the episode before they realize what the roles are, where Crusher comes in. So there's been a bit of a debate as to, you know, do we do a scan of the ship versus having all, because if we do a scan of the ship, then all of our defenses and weapons aren't going to be ready. And Worf is a little hesitant, but he ultimately admits that we kind of have to understand something. So he does concede to that. But then Crusher comes in, and she's also lost her memory. Everyone's lost their memory. And she's like, well, if I can see our medical records, so I've got a baseline for what our brains are supposed to be, I can check to see if anything's changed, medically speaking. And Picard's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Well, we can't do it right now because we're doing a scan, but that'll be our next priority. And just the look on Worf's face when he says that, and then afterwards when he's left standing there, is brilliant. He is so mad. Like, he's so mad that Picard's made that choice.
And it's these moments that I think are my favorite in this episode, where they don't even say anything. It's just there's this clashing of personality that goes unsaid for a lot of it.
Yep, no, absolutely.
But it's just there.
And, you know, and that's something that McDuff even tries to exploit. You know, when he clearly sees Picard starting to have these moral objections, perhaps, to what the plan is, he goes to Worf and tries to sort of, like, manipulate Worf into, like, you know, if the captain hesitates, you should still press the button, because, you know, battle, man, come on, we have to crush our enemies, Klingon spirit, like, you know, that's effectively what he does, in a slyer, you know, turn of phrase, but that's good. And they also have fun with some of the character stuff, you know, like, they do a good job in the opening scene. There's like a fun scene of Troy and Data playing chess, and she kind of tricks him a little bit and wins. And he's kind of like, you know, he's still learning human dynamics and all that. Yeah, chess, in a lot of ways, chess is kind of a math puzzle, but at the same time, there's a lot more going on. And he makes her a drink, and because he makes her a drink that he's promised her if he lost, like, he thinks he's just the bartender when everything gets changed, and his memory does go as well. He just starts making drinks for people.
They just assume, android bartender. This makes sense.
Yeah, of course. But the other thing I was getting to is Riker and Ensign Ro, who's back for this episode. It was nice to see her, still kicking around in the ship. Is that they're at each other's throats. Like, he's mad that she's made this call without writing up the chain of command. He agrees that he might have actually agreed to her idea had she actually, like, proposed it, but she just did it on her own merit, and rightfully he's kind of pissed about it. So they're at each other's throats. It kind of feels that we're kind of maybe doing a little plot with them where there's going to be some sort of mutual respect, but of course it flips it on its head, because as always, whenever you have a memory loss episode, two characters who have never romantically been linked before have to get it on. Like, that's just the rule. That's what you do.
And if you're doing that in this show, of course it's going to be Riker.
Of course. There's a raw attraction with it. And it actually turns into this thing where he also has a genuine kind of, like, thing with Troy, where Troy and him are, well, they're kind of remembering there's, like, a connection. They're feeling something. And it's kind of like the more sweet version. But then as soon as he leaves the scene with her, he walks into his quarters, and Ensign Ro's like, all right, it's time to get down.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, I'm here for one thing, and you know what it is, so let's get it on. And
Troy is immediately forgotten.
Yeah, but then there's a scene after that where Troy comes by and they start talking about this book, and he's like showing that he can play his trombone, and they're kind of hitting it off again. And then Ro comes in, and it's like an awkward moment where she's like, I think I'm the jealous type. You better not have been, you know, flirting with her. And it's kind of played for this thing where, like, it is kind of almost joking about the idea that he is this much of a ladies' man. And it's we get the, you know, after everything ends at the end of the episode, the joke ending is that they two have been sitting talking, and they've all got their memories back, and he comes in and he's like, oh, I was hoping I'd run into you too.
Do you know what one of my favorite little beats in this scene is? They go like, you should sit down, and he has to sit down, and he has to sit on a normal chair.
Yeah.
And obviously that is, you know, uncomfortable for him, right?
Schraker's kryptonite.
Right, but you know, as an actor, you know, he struggles with chairs. But there's that moment where he's sitting down, and he clearly, like, his face pulls in pain a little bit. But it's like, it plays as just, oh, he is dreading this moment. It's so good.
what's wonderful, because we've seen from both Riker and Troy in previous episodes, they're both quite happy about, because they're not in a relationship right now, and they both seem quite comfortable with the idea that the other one does go on and have relationships with other people, right? This is something that's been challenged for both, especially Riker, where Riker, there was that one episode where the bad guy outright tried to like sort of play his feelings for Troy against him, and Riker's like, look, if you try to trick me and make me jealous, like, that doesn't, our relationship does not work like that. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, the idea that Riker's like totally into swinging completely makes sense, to be honest. When
it wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah,
and at least something, you know, just left of swinging, right? Effectively, maybe once they've settled down, he's not up for it, but like at least for now, yeah. So that's okay. The issue here is that he continues having these sweet connecting scenes with Troy as he's having this weird, like, well, we've got no memories, we might as well screw like there's no tomorrow thing with Ro. So he sits down at the end of the episode and they're just smirking and they're just like, they've been clearly comparing some notes, and you know, Ro's like, oh, you know, the counselor informs me that that's just, you know, in situations like that you might have just done something that you always wanted to. Is that a fact? And he's getting uncomfortable, and she just kind of leaves. But it ends in this joke moment where Riker tries to kind of make nice about it, right? But clearly Deanna's a little upset that whilst they were having these genuine connecting moments where almost like their romance was transcending memory, it was like, no, we are meant to be together because we were having these feelings even without this. You were shacking up with some hot Bajoran.
Yeah, that is exactly what the scene is, and it's a perfect ending.
No, it's good. It's a good, you know, it's kind of a serious episode. There's a lot of jokey moments, but obviously the implications of the main plot, which we'll get into in a bit, are quite serious. So this was kind of a perfect little have some fun at the end. What
makes this such a relatively strong episode, even though some of the main stuff is a little bit predictable with, you know, what they do with the other actor, you know, the guest, basically, you know, that stuff. It's like, yeah, it's okay, whatever. But the main plot, I think, is quite good in its ideas, and its execution is mostly there, but it balances, you know, that pretty heavy topic with quite a lot of comedy.
It's all the little character clashes without the respect that they've actually earned for each other through their adventures. Those are the more interesting moments, and ultimately this guy McDuff, he's part of an alien species, and it's very clear that because you know, like, okay, this guy's the first officer now, and he's like in conversations with everyone, so that's weird. But then they sit down for their meeting, right, and they've got everyone like, okay, this is all the senior staff, so everyone's going to come up and we're going to talk about this. And they've done a bit of computer digging, and it turns out the Federation's at war with the Lysians, and I'm like, who?
Are we?
Did I miss an episode? Like, when did the Federation go to war?
Oh, it's been a war. Do you know this? This whole show is a war show.
And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think I'm getting exactly where this is going. But it's that moment where I'm like, am I just like being an idiot and forgetting something? Is that what, you know, there's a doubtful moment. But clearly, like, his objective here is to use the Enterprise to like kill a ship or a station that he has some motive to kill, and it becomes this thing. Okay, they've got this secret super weapon that could, you know, turn the tide of the war. But as long as if we destroy this, then that's going to. And he says something like, there'll be like 50 crew or something. It won't be a big deal. And on their way there, they encounter a ship from the Lysians, and they're kind of shocked that it's no match for them. It's easy to kill. And I actually really liked a little bit of the writing here, which was that Picard is like, no, we're not going to fire upon it. Let's try and do this. Let's appear friendly. Don't put up the shields. Let's go in. We're here for communication first. And it's only because the other ship like starts, you know, putting their weapons in gear, and they start doing. It's like, they start trying to scan the computers. Oh, okay, fine, right. We're going to have to fire. In fact, I'm mixing actually two scenes up here because I think the scanning was the start of the episode.
That was the original bit. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I think here they try the Lysians try hailing the Enterprise first, and they're like, let's ignore it, and then they start, and because they're ignoring it, they start charging up weapons or something. So they're like, right, okay, I guess that's it.
I like in this case in both scenes, and since I'm mixing the two together, in both scenes, Picard tries to avoid the actual like aggressive. And in the first one's not even aggressive. It's just putting up the shields looks like we're coming in, like being suspicious of you. It was like just a gesture.
It's very important that we have both of these kind of mirroring like that, because the whole point there is that, okay, the first one is Picard as himself, and this is what he does. This is the baseline for, let's say hypothetically this was your first episode. This is how he acts in these scenarios. So then you see the second one where he hasn't got his memories, but you see he's still taking that same attitude, that same approach. And it's like, okay, he's still him.
Yeah, great, absolutely. And ultimately, he on the way there, he has this meeting, and McDuffie tries to, talk him into it and like pretend that he's on his side and whatever. But Picard's like, we can't verify these orders. I'm being told, I'm reading that I'm supposed to go in here and annihilate this station, and he compares it to being put into a room with a stranger with a gun in his hand and been told to shoot him with no reason or like whatever, like. He needs to have the moral reasoning to back this up. He can't just do this. He can't just do it without a proper reason. And as they get closer and closer to the station, like, the defenses aren't that great. They scan their firepower, and it's like, oh, like, they're like 100 years... Yeah, like 100 years behind us in terms of weaponry. Like, this is nothing. And Picard's like, no, that's not. Let's not do this. This just feels wrong. And Troy, the whole episode's been like, yeah, something feels wrong about all this Lysian war nonsense. I feel it in my gut. And I thought maybe this would be an episode to show that like her empath ability would end up being useful, because she would, like, her sensing that would be what turns the tide. It doesn't know. Like, it never actually factors into anything.
I think that's because she doesn't know she has an empath ability.
But she talks about it, though. She says that she feels everyone's feelings, so she's kind of getting it.
She's starting to get there, but like, it's not like something she knows straight away. It's not something she can consciously, like, be aware of at the same level as she usually is. I don't think. I
guess what I'm saying is that I don't buy that Picard wouldn't have made the same choice if, because she always says it once or twice to Picard that she has a bad feeling about it, basically. I don't necessarily buy that Picard's mind would have been swayed any more over to the drastic action had Troy not whispered that in his ear a couple of times. I feel like Picard's doubt here would still have been there, regardless. So
I think so as well. I think that's kind of the point, right? Is that he would have that moral stance regardless of anyone else on the ship.
Yeah, and of course Worf doesn't, betray Picard's orders. Like, it's like true to his character that once he's realized Picard is the captain, he is level-headed. He follows Picard's orders. He appreciates that chain of command. So when McDuff tries to, like, say, I'm taking command of this ship, Worf, you will press that button, and gets all aggressive with him. Ultimately he acts out.
I like that. I do like, though, in that scene that Worf doesn't immediately just, like, shut McDuff down. It's not like, there is hesitation. He doesn't really know quite what to do, but he obviously doesn't press. He's not willing to press the button.
I also like the idea that, he sees how this guy's acting. He's also processing, like, wait, he's been really hot-headed here. This is not, like, Picard seems like a commanding officer. He's he's thinking about what he's saying. He's making these decisions. This guy is pushing for an agenda. This guy is pushing for something specific. I like the idea that this is also some intelligence coming out in Worf as well. On top of morals and, being able to challenge his own basic, like, I want to fight instincts that he obviously has been Klingon. So, yeah, all that stuff is just solid. Like, it's actually a really good episode that I think just never tips over the line into, like, one of the best. It's like, it's just teetering on the line between great and, like, a standout episode.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I do think it is those character moments that push it into firmly being great.
Yeah.
The plot on its own is very good, but the two never quite just come together enough to push it over that that final boundary. Yeah.
Maybe it's just a case of, like, the actual standoff of, like challenging the decision. Maybe that had to be more of a big moment. Maybe like Picard. Not that it's just. I always default to Picard needs to make a speech, but I do wonder if Picard having to, like, either appeal to Worf or another member of crew, or someone to convince them that this isn't the right thing or something. Like, if it almost felt like it was resolved a little quickly, I guess.
No, I get it. It's nice that everyone at their core is a good enough person to follow the captain, right, and not make the rash decisions. But it's less interesting from a dramatic point of view.
Yeah, like, and Worf's the obvious one to do it with because he is the one who kind of challenges him a little bit. But
It does set up enough in the episode that if Worf had challenged this moment, like I said, there is some hesitation. If he challenged it a little bit more, I don't think it would have felt out of character.
yeah, and maybe give us more of a sense of like what they almost did, like the idea that they were almost ready to like kill. I think it was to say something like 1,500 people were on the station, and like just the weight of that and like the horror of what they almost went through. So like there's just some things to be behind that a little bit, but it is pretty great anyway. Like without that, a couple of other things to talk about character wise. I did think it was really interesting hearing Data talk about what he thinks, like, because Geordi brings up, oh, you're the only android on the ship. That's a bit weird. What do you think about that? And he kind of says, oh, I figure I'm from a line of androids. Maybe there's an android in every starship. Maybe I come from a planet of androids, or maybe like there's an android built for every ship. Like, I thought it was very interesting that every single scenario they came up with in that conversation, not one of them was you're the only one.
I think they did get to that eventually. I think that was the final bit of like, well, that is the only other possibility.
Yeah, but it was the last possibility. Like, it was almost like his mind. Like, Data says he doesn't have feelings, right? But the fact that like his instinct is to hope for all of these outcomes where he's not alone feels like a feeling to me. It feels like a loneliness or a natural human desire.
Yeah, definitely. He wants to be part of a community, I guess.
I thought that was well done. I thought that was because Data's not a focus of the episode by any means, and he was such a focus of the last memory loss episode that I get why they didn't want him to be like the core focus of this.
Yeah.
A little thing that I thought was a bit strange. So there's a character that set up early on that I thought was going to play into like the plot more later in the episode. Not that they were going to end up as part of like the villains or anything like that, but just that maybe they'd be the innocent person in jeopardy later on, maybe when the villain was revealed or something. So there's a woman in medbay at the start of the episode, and it devotes like just a minute to like Crusher looking over her, and so she was like doing some swimming or something in the holodeck, and she hurt her shoulder and neck, and she's like your ligaments are a bit whatever, but we can fix that, blah blah blah. And then the memory loss thing happens, and it makes a point of having a scene with her again after the memory loss where her and Crusher, and it's like Crusher's like saying, oh, I know how to use this medical doohickey, even though like I just instinct.
Yeah. And I was like, that's great, but why am I in a swimming outfit?
Yeah, and there was a bit of back and forth between them, which felt like it was setting her. So okay, we have this character who's kind of a blank slate to us, other than knowing that she likes to do swimming and diving. Like, we don't know anything about her, but I thought, okay, this is a character we're going to use in the episode, and then we never see her again.
Yeah, that is a bit weird.
Especially because it ended with a kind of a classic thing where she turns and goes, hey, do you have any clothes I can borrow? And I thought, oh, that's it. But, we're going to see her in a couple of scenes time walk in like some, medical pajamas or something, because that's what they had in medbay.
But there's nothing.
Yeah. But yeah, there was nothing. Like, she just never appeared again. And it was just at the end of the episode where I went, wait, we've not seen that diver girl again. Where is she?
Yeah, ultimately she was there so that we had an excuse to see Crusher, and Crusher had to be in the act of being a doctor, so she knew she was a doctor.
They didn't need this much dialogue for this, though.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's why she was there. Like that was her purpose.
She had enough dialogue that she felt like she was set up as a character. No, I'm not saying she was going to stick around for a season arc, right? I'm just saying for one episode she was going to be relevant later somehow, and
I agree.
She just never appeared again. It was weird. Yeah. So slight oddity in the writing with that, but hey, maybe we should have a scene later where they get cut or something. I don't know, but
it's possible.
It couldn't have been super huge though if it was only one scene that get cut.
Yeah, the fact that it was clearly quite easily cuttable means it didn't matter that much.
Yeah, unless this episode came in like 10 minutes long and there was an entire subplot with her.
Possible, but unlikely. I think at this point they know how long to write the scripts for.
I mean, that's just not specific to this show. Like, if you're a writer in TV, you know how to roughly hit the time of an episode.
I would hope so. Yeah. Otherwise,
even in
you'd probably be better at your job.
Yeah, even in the early 90s, they'd already kind of sussed that more or less. Like,
yeah,
give or take a minute. So, yeah, but no, pretty solid episode. Had an enjoyable time with it. Some good character beats, and just kind of solidifies our characters are who they are and their strong moral standing. So that's very nice. And it was nice to see like Geordi and Data still kind of form a friendship, you know, just little things like that.
Yeah, like I say, those links were still there, like like Riker and Troy. Geordi and Data had that connection still in a different way, obviously, but these deeper friendships are still there.
Yeah, so neat. So let's look ahead and see what's coming next time on Next Generation. It's called Power Play, and the episode description on IMDb is as follows. A long-lost ship is found on a planet where cosmic storms prevented detection for 200 years. I like the sound of this so far. When a surface landing goes wrong, the away team is beamed back with a few extra surprises. So they're...
Almost sounds like it could be like Alien.
Yeah, I could see them being infected with something, or I could see them... I don't know. I mean, honestly, there's probably like a good dozen episodes of this show, a good dozen episodes of the original series that could fit this description. It just depends on what the surprise they bring back with them is.
I think the way that was written made me think Parasite, Alien, that sort of thing. But, these descriptions can be a little misleading.
Yeah, but are you thinking monster on the ship, or are you thinking body snatcher, someone's been taking control?
Monster on the ship.
You think it's a monster on the ship? It's called
that was my thought from that. But
it's called Power Play, though, which makes me think it's... I would think it's more someone's being controlled and trying to take control of the ship through it.
No, it could be, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think the xenomorph alien is making a power play.
Well, you've been watching that movie wrong.
For the Nostromo. It's all calculated. This will be my ship now. So that's what's coming next time on Next Gen. So let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Do like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. It does help out a lot. All YouTubers tell you to do it for a reason, so please do hit the buttons. And look out for the Star Trek Discovery reviews that I'm doing with Tara right now for season 4. So if you're keeping up with that, have a look-see. And of course, you can support us financially over at Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and support us for as little as $1 per month and keep all the content coming. But otherwise, that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and remember that somewhere out there, Wesley Crusher doesn't know who he is.